the aim of this presentation is to really show you what we've done to take Klyk from an IT provider to a real like AI-enabled IT company. And I think the idea is for you to walk away from this breakfast event full from all the croissants, but also with some practical tips on what you can do in your business. And I'll also be sharing our journey, what we did step by step, where we got to, what we delivered. And yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to put your hand up. Okay, sounds good? All right, so first things first, I think let's all just stand up and stretch after all of the sugar. So it's just arms up, shake your hands, shake your legs. All right, we feeling good? Okay, all right. We good? All right, let's sit back down. Okay, cool. So firstly, imagine right now, okay, like you're at breakfast. Let's say an employee has just, so an employee has polished a 10-page report in 30 seconds, but a lot of it is just false, right? And this happens quite a bit because sometimes people use AI and they generate something which has inaccuracies and it hasn't been checked properly. So firstly, yeah, just like raise your hand who's received a report like this in the past. Yeah, okay. So this is super common, right? People use AI in a way which is good, but also it can be dangerous, right? Because if you use it without the right checks and balances, then it can be harmful. It can produce inaccurate results. Give me a second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like I said, most companies already use AI. Few get the real value. So, yeah, the idea is, so like firstly, who here uses AI? If you raise your hand. If you actually measure the return on the investment with AI, keep your hands raised. Yeah, okay. So this, again, super common, right? People jump to using these tools. These tools are amazing, but it's very rare and it's also very uncommon for people to actually get the most out of this and have the right metrics in place, make sure you're using this in the right way, have the right guardrails. All right, so who am I? My name is Ali. I'm a co-founder and CPTO at Klyk. And so I'll be walking through my background as well, but I have a software engineering background. So I spent first part of my career coding. Then I worked at Google for about 10 years. So initially I was an engineer and then I was a product lead. So I launched a lot of features for Google Chrome, Password Manager, and then I joined Klyk. So these are some of the features, products that I was able to launch. So if you've ever used Google Chrome, Chrome Autofill, the features that help you fill in your credit cards, passwords, addresses, I launched a lot of those features. I launched Google Password Manager. And really, my role there was to help people fill things on the web, which sounds simple, but when you're launching products and features for billions of users, it's not so simple. and actually, the fact that it feels simple is great for the user experience, but a lot of it goes into it. And part of what I'll share today is lessons from doing that and how you can take that to your business. Okay. First lesson, trust. And you know, like this applies to products, applies to people. You know, trust has to be earned and the quality has to be really good. And humans are like elephants, okay? So elephants don't forget or forgive. And we need to think of people like this as well, whether it's your users, other employees. If you break their trust, it's hard to regain it. And so that's the first principle of like making sure that the quality is obviously very high and thinking of this like, you know, like how do we earn the trust and how do we not break the trust? This applies to product development as well. Second thing, which is a big principle, is around security and frictionless. So for example, for Autofill, you know, the reason why people use it is because it's frictionless, right? It helps them fill forms in, right? But if it wasn't secure enough and people didn't trust it, people wouldn't use it. If you alternatively add, let's say, too much security or too much friction, if you make them, you know, verify they are who they are through an SMS every time they want to use Autofill, people won't use it, right? Because there's too much friction. And so this trade-off actually appears all the time, maybe without you even realizing. So within the AI space, like with LLMs, you need a secure enough baseline of trust. You need to trust it. It needs to be secure. At the same time, it needs to really save you time and produce great results, right? And so this applies to LLMs, applies to many other aspects. And so just like as an example, you know, if you're using an LLM and you have the right guardrails, I'll also walk you through what it means to have right guardrails as well. So, but just as an example, let's say you're using an LLM software, and like for example, let's say you're using Fireflies for your meeting notes. If you were to use Fireflies as an enterprise, you can have strict guardrails in place, and you can make sure that everybody has to use sign in with Google. It all works fine. Your data is not going to be stored in some server in the US, right? And so you need this level of security baseline. Also, you want to make sure that they're not retaining your data. They're not training their models on your data, right? These are all things that affect the security baseline. And also, it needs to do the job well, right? It needs to be able to summarize your meeting notes, etc. So, for example, on the Autofill side, right, it feels like one effortless Autofill click, right? You click on it, it works. Maybe it verifies you are who you are through Touch ID or screen lock. But below it, you know, we need to make sure there's encryption, like the data is very secure. We have fraud detection, there's compliance, etc. Third lesson. Automating things is great, and we should do it where we can, but don't neglect the human aspect as well. Sounds obvious, but I'll walk you through an example. So, you know, in general, so with Autofill, this is a product, for example, that was running for billions of users, right? Billions of people use it all over the world. But despite this, we had humans every week, every month, every quarter, manually going through the top websites and making sure it all works fine, right? And so this is, if this is the case in like billion user scale, let's definitely not try to automate everything. Just be quite selective with what we automate, and keeping that human in the loop is super important. And so, like AI is the engine, experience is the steering wheel. Fourth lesson is the quality of the data, right? And so garbage in, automated chaos out. Essentially, when you have your data all over the place and you try to use AI in different ways, then the quality is going to be less. And when I say data, it could be the quality of the data you give to prompts, could be within integrations you do, but it's essentially, you know, the quality of your output is only as good as your data. Whereas if everything is very clean, it's in one place, there's one source of truth, everything is findable, then the quality will be a lot higher, right? And so, you know, if I was to ask you, let's say somebody new joined your company and they couldn't find the answer, they couldn't find the data to what they needed, assuming they have access, how often would this, like, how likely are they to find the right data? And if the answer is, actually, it'll be very difficult for them to find the data, even if they have the access, then this is an indication that actually you need to make sure that the data is organized and structured in a better way. Okay, with me so far? All right. Fifth lesson, this is the last lesson I'll show. And afterwards, I'll show you more practical examples. I'll show you our journey, how we applied these lessons as well. So this one is meeting people where they are, right? And so think of it like whether it's introducing a new process for your team, for your products, for users. Whenever you introduce a change, think of it like a tax. So whenever somebody needs to learn something new, this is a tax, and this affects your adoption, affects how people use it. And so you want to be very conscious of this. A lot of people, they neglect this tax. And so what I mean is, let's say you were to start asking people to use a new tool. This is an additional bit of friction. You need to integrate and meet people where they are as much as you can. Again, it sounds fairly intuitive, but you'll be surprised at how often people will come up with a new process and say, yeah, it's fine. They just need to sign up to this website and do these things. Whereas if you can do this within your own tools and really start there, it makes a big difference. For example, in Google, it was obviously a huge difference. If people are already using certain parts of Chrome, the adoption is extremely high versus if we were to create a new section and then teach people how to do that. No matter how much marketing you do, if people are used to certain habits, you want to really meet people where they are. So no portals, no external tools where you don't need them, right? Okay, so here I want to demonstrate to you like a traffic light kind of system for dealing with different types of data. AI can handle all of this, but you just need to have different levels of caution. So firstly, you've got very non-sensitive data, right? Like, so for example, publicly available information, trends, FAQs, right? With this, there's not really a big risk. This is already available to everybody, so you can fully automate that. Then you've got more sensitive information, like I would say like Amber, which is around, let's say, like job specs, emails. This is like very sensitive. And then you've got the like, really, really sensitive, like red light, payroll, HR data. Like this is really crucial. And technically, AI can handle all of this, but actually, a lot of the time, people don't go through this exercise of segmenting where the data you want to automate and where it sits within green, amber, red. Out of curiosity, has anybody done this exercise within your own company? Okay, so, okay, a little bit, yeah, cool. Yeah, so I think it's good to make it an explicit step because then you can make sure that you're doing the right precautions for each type of data. Okay, all right, so typically, what companies do is, and I'm not saying this is the case for people here, but like a really common thing is, like things are already on fire, right? You're all busy, everybody's busy. And then you come across this tool, you see an ad and you're like, oh, this tool's amazing, let's just use it. And you immediately just start using it. And there's no, there's no guardrail in place. People may be, or even worse, it's not even authorized by the company. Like some employee just found some free tool online, start putting in all the confidential information, and then like this is obviously a breach of GDPR, right? And so I want to walk you through a journey. This is a framework that we've used internally and for some of our customers as well. So firstly, doing a very thorough audit, right? And this audit should map how people use AI today in terms of usage, security baseline. And with this, what we've done is initially a survey, and the survey should have different sections, right? And each section should be for different departments. And then so that way you get some initial baseline of data from different parts of the company. After you get people to submit the survey, then you do interviews with them, with the department leads, to go deeper on the data, because the data from the survey will be useful, but you want to really thoroughly understand like how people are using AI, how proficient they are they currently doing things that are in breach of GDPR? Like what's the baseline, right? Next is you want to develop the AI policy. I have a whole slide for AI policy, how to go about creating it, exactly what we do, like which tools should be allowed, how do you go about it, which tools are unapproved, right? And this AI policy should be based on the audit. Then you want to train the team. So now you have the AI policy. AI policy dictates how people should use AI, right? And then you train the team to make sure they know how to use these approved tools. Finally, once you've trained people, there will inevitably be workflows, skills you want them to actually do with it, and you don't want them to use it inefficiently. You want to implement, to have some AI implementation. Okay, AI policy. Firstly, does anybody know what shadow AI is? Actually, before I do that, shadow AI. Anyone? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we've got some people. Shadow AI basically is somebody in your company using an AI tool that is unapproved, right? So this is the case I mentioned before, right? Somebody was on Instagram and saw some AI tool that looks really cool and can organize their inbox or something, and then give access to the whole inbox to some AI tool, and then boom, all of your data is just in some server in the US, and you're not even aware, right? Like this is someone has gone rogue and done this. Super common, right? Also really, really bad. Shouldn't happen. What is an AI policy? AI policy will prevent shadow AI. So you dictate what should never enter what data should never enter certain AI within the company, firstly. Like what's the red for your company? Each company will be different. It depends on the type of company, the type of data you deal with. You know, like, for example, if you're a regulated company, the bar is higher, right? Then which tools are approved? Not only which ones are approved, but the list of approved tools should be good enough so that people don't need to use alternatives. Next, which tools are unapproved? This is not an exhaustive list, but like explicitly to say, okay, as a company, we do not allow, I don't know, Grok or something, or Perplexity, right, for X reasons. Then you do a thorough audit. Well, actually, the audit will be before, but the point here is to reiterate the importance of this audit. This audit being the level of AI proficiency within the company, but also auditing the use cases and user journeys that people go on right now that would be relevant and useful to automate with AI. And then the strategic roadmap, which would be based on the audit. So what are the user journeys we want to automate? All right, everyone with me so far? Yeah? Cool. Let's make this practical, right? So let's say there's a D2C skincare brand, and let's say within one inbox, you've got people chasing orders, you've got people wanting returns, you've got people asking questions, you know, about like the products, right? And you know, we use the same framework I just mentioned, right? So let's say we were to take this example. We first audit the team through, we'll audit how they use AI, so send the survey, then do the interviews. Now, in this case, the care lead, like somebody who's responsible for care for customers, would know best. So this person, you want to really spend a lot of time in the interview as well, not just the survey. Mapping the use cases, right? So what are people trying to do? You know, like I mentioned some use cases, but there will inevitably be other ones, whether it's things that the end customers want or people internally want, right? Then walking the user journeys. So not just identifying the use cases, actually going through the user journeys yourself, right? So like what is, like, okay, so people want FAQ. Let me actually do that. Like I'll pretend to be a customer. Let me just send an email to the brand and see what happens, right? End to end, from the internal point of view and external point of view. Like, then building the skills and workflows in your LLM. I'll be talking a bit about like some prompting, how to prompt, like on a fundamental level, some advanced tips. I won't spend too long because I know there's different levels of capability there. But really, how do we go about systematizing the way we use AI through workflows? And then if all else fails, bearing in mind that the capabilities within these AI tools are really solid and you can do so much with what you have right now. But if all of that fails, then to build the software yourself, which again can be expedited with AI to some extent, but we'll get back to that point. So let's say we've done the audit. This is what came up. So 2/3 of the inbox was the same 3 questions, right? Okay, and so you know, people wanted the order status, the returns, and this was the priority use case. And so what we typically should do is once we identify all the use cases, map it out into like a chart where you've got frequency and you've got impact. And so you want to optimize for the highest frequency, highest impact. Then you develop the workflow. So develop the workflow so that AI can triage certain inboxes, certain emails, and then draft responses potentially depending on your guidelines, FAQs, right? And then, yeah, so that's essentially an example. Now, I think what would be helpful is you all have nice pages in front of you, pens. I'd love to just spend 5 minutes or so as a group. I think that group is quite big, but I think you can still probably make it work within one group. So each table being a group, we've got 4 groups. We spend 5 minutes and to talk between yourselves and to write down the workflows you'd want most automated, bearing in mind this framework of highest frequency, highest impact. So let's reconvene in 5 minutes, and then yeah, we can just like after that, each table can just talk through some of the highlights within the table. Yeah, sounds good. Any questions, or are we good? Great. Thanks for sharing, everyone. And yeah, I hope that's somewhat helpful to just hear from other people in terms of like what kind of things that would be good for them to automate. Maybe we can take some learnings there. So let's go through. I'm going to whiz through these two next slides because I know that some people are quite proficient already. But prompting fundamentals. Firstly, we want to say who you are to the AI. Like you are a brand specialist. Do this. Or you are a sales expert in sales. Draft the following. Right. You want to say who they are. Give them a role. You want to give them a verb. Like give it one clear instruction. You want to give good examples. When you prompt AI, the more good examples you give, the better. And you want to say the format, right? Do you want this as a slide deck? You want this as a 150 words, do you want like a paragraph? Do you want report? And so instead of saying like write a supplier update, you want to say, for example, okay, you are writing to our 12 suppliers. Here's the notes from last time. Draft this for us, okay? Pretty basic stuff. This goes a bit further in terms of some more tips. So one thing that I sometimes do is I ask it to sometimes come up with the prompt I should ask. I don't know if anybody's tried to do that. It's quite meta, but I think that's quite useful. Sometimes I do that and then I ask another LLM, okay, now doing this, and then I compare the two. You can say, ask me questions about this first, and then based on the questions, then you can say, okay, now edit the prompt so that I can, do this deliverable in a better way. You want to give it the raw materials. It's quite good at processing like unstructured data, but the data has to be very good, very accurate, clean. I use it a lot for reviewing things. So like you are a finance director, review this thing. And so I'll also talk a bit about skills and how you can have some of these workflows as well. And then, you can chain them, obviously, so you can ask follow-up questions and things. And then when a prompt works well, try to keep it, save it. In Claude, you can build a skill, for example, in Claude. In Gemini, it's called Gemini Gem, right? Try to just be conscious of what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then you can use that later on. So who here has made a Claude skill before? Okay, cool. All right, most of the room. All right, so I'll go through this really quickly. So basically a skill just helps you save like a prompt or helps you reuse something so that in the future, you don't have to re-give it all of the data, all of the prompt, it knows it already. And so, if you do without a skill, every week you might paste the prompt again and then ask it to refix the tone each time, but with a skill, you can just automate it, make it a lot quicker. Right, so I'll go through this. So for example, for me, I recently made like an SEO blog draft kind of skill, which is pretty cool. All right, so I want to talk to you about our journey as Klyk as well, conscious of time. But for us, when I joined the business very recently, we were thinking like, what would we need to do to really level up and scale this company and provide an amazing, much better experience for our customers? And we were looking through the data. We found in our support tickets, a lot of the tickets were similar in some ways and can be categorized, right? So this is an important finding. So similar tickets like password resets, access requests, week after week, and our IT engineers would say, hello, this is Klyk, let me reset your password. And it was, this is happening quite a lot, right? Also, obviously, as part of this, as I mentioned before, around meeting people where they are, the experience matters. And remember, like people are elephants, right? People don't forget and they don't forgive. You want to earn that trust. You want to make sure the experience is incredible. And the human touch is important, right? We don't want to lose the human touch, no matter how AI native you are as a company. So the question becomes like, how do we give this the best support experience, up-level our level of support, keep the human touch, and allow our IT engineers to do their best work and to not do mundane tasks that they don't really want to do. So this is what we built. We built a product called Resolver. This exists in Slack and Teams. We launched it on both, and it's an IT support agent. And so we've had thousands of tickets in the past, and so we've been able to train it in that way to make sure it knows IT support really well. It can handle IT support issues very well. And this is, and I'll talk you through what we built and how we use some of these principles so that you can also go away after this, and whether you want to develop your own software like we did, or to use like these LLMs and have the right guardrails, you can also do that, right? The way it works is somebody, the principal meeting users where they are, very important. Who here likes to open a portal and try to find the URL, and like nobody likes that, right? People want to ask questions, they want to get support where they already are using their tools. And so if somebody's company is using Slack or Teams, they are already using this. They're already using it to message their colleagues. Or Google Chat. There's a few possible support channels. Then Resolver will triage issues. So when somebody messages our AI agent, it will go through that. It will clarify if needed, and then the app will resolve it automatically if it can. If it can't resolve it automatically, then a friendly engineer will be there. And so the way we've designed it is that either our customers who don't have IT engineers, typically, our IT engineers are the fallback to resolve the issue if the AI can't solve it. But we're talking to customers also who have their own IT engineers, and let's say they're swamped. Let's say if somebody's ill, or let's say there's just a lot of workload, then the AI can hand off to their IT engineering team, right? And so it can work in both ways, whether or not you have an IT engineering team. What I'll do is I'll show you like some GIFs of the experience. This is based on me using the product yesterday. So the first one is we have many quick actions, password reset being one of them. Let's say somebody forgets their password. Remember, frictionless and security. If we were to just say, okay, you want to reset your password? Here's your password, right? Very frictionless, not secure, right? So, but if we were to say, okay, well, send us your passport, that's very secure, but not frictionless, and it's not, there'd be privacy issues. So what we did was we know the user's number, and we send them an SMS OTP to verify they are who they say they are. Once they do that, then we can reset their password, right? So to have that level of security. Next one is we want to make it as conversational as possible, right? We want to make it like talking to a friend, and so we support voice notes, right? Like let's say you're busy, you just want to do a voice note to tell support. We should process that, and we do, right? And so this is me saying I had a Dropbox issue, it gave me something, and I gave it a voice note, and it was able to resolve the issue. Again, very conversational. Also, it should be able to send screenshots. You should be able to send screenshots, videos, files. It should process it all for you, and it should like read it and then be able to either instantly resolve it or hand it off to an IT engineer, again, with all of the context. This is a really cool feature, and it goes beyond laptop running slowly, but what this AI agent can do is it can remotely run a script to fix certain issues with your device as well. So let's say, for example, your device is running slow, right? Has anybody felt their device has been running slow over the last few weeks? Right? Everybody, right? Everybody. And so this essentially, if your laptop is running slowly, very common support ticket. It can actually run scripts on your device, and it can not only suggest optimizations, it can actually do these optimizations. And we've been using this internally at Klyk for a few weeks, has it been, I think? And it works incredibly well, right? Like it just makes you more productive, your laptop runs faster. Either it can do things for you, and again, security, frictionless. It doesn't just do it, right? It will ask you, okay, I'm about to do this. Do you want to approve? Yes, no? Just to make sure that it's being transparent and the user has that control. If they're happy, fantastic. If they're not, that's also okay. We also provide instructions if they want to do it themselves, if they don't want the AI to do it for them. On security, again, remember the elephant. So for us, for the Resolver, we make sure we don't do any training on your data from the LLM side. So like, Gemini, Claude, not going to access or use our customers' data for training purposes. There's always a human in the loop for any actions that require anything on their device or their Google or Microsoft account. They always have to approve. It's also completely opt-in, and so we wanted to make sure that even when we roll this out, our customers, some employees might be like, you know what, I'm old school, I would rather just call or email, also totally fine. That's also a valid option. We want to make sure everybody does use these options, like within Slack or Teams, because it's a superior experience and they can get support quicker, but it's also an option. And finally, a full audit trail in the ticketing system as well. So then there's full visibility, whatever happens, even if an IT engineer takes on the ticket, they can still resolve it. Finally, what I would say is, let's say you get out of this event and you say like, okay, now I know the workflows that I want to automate, I know what I want to do. Setting clear success metrics is super important. And so this is something that I've seen a lot of companies not get super right. And so they might say things like, our success metrics are the number of licenses people have purchased, or the number of prompts people have written, or how much adoption rate is AI, how often are people using AI. And these are metrics, but they're not, if you optimize for these metrics, they're not really going to get you closer to the goal, right? And I can't give you those metrics for you. Those metrics depend on what you want the workflows to be, if you choose software, what kind of things would. Essentially, the question is, if you were to overly optimize for these metrics, does it help you get closer to the goal? Just if you optimize them. Or are these metrics easily gameable, right? And so this is the kind of question you should ask. So for example, for our journey, our product, our success metrics are how often are tickets being resolved with zero human touch, right? Like how often are they instantly resolved and are not being reopened, right? This is an important success metric. Another one is what's the time it takes to resolve a ticket on average? That's a very important success metric. Again, if we optimize for this, then it's a good experience because it means that customers are happy. No customer wants their IT support tickets to last longer than they should, as long as they're resolved properly. And finally, after a ticket is closed, how often is it being reopened? So this is our set of success metrics, but homework for you after today, when you go on this journey, maybe you already are on this journey, but also just to reflect on what are the metrics we're really setting for us, our team, to make sure we're doing this in the right way and we're not going to game the metrics, game the system. Because then you can set the team goals and say, okay, for next quarter, these are the success metrics to help us get to this point. Any questions so far? All right, cool. Finally, these are some pretty simple do's and don'ts. I think for the team, it seems like participants here are actually quite AI proficient, but they're essentially good reminders. So on the data security side, try to make sure that the tools use SSO, sign in with Google, sign in with Microsoft. You want to make sure that they're not retaining your data more than they need to. Want to make sure there's safety guardrails between UK, US. A lot of AI tools are like US based. Not all of them, but quite a few of them are. And so you want to make sure that there aren't any GDPR issues there. And then on the workflow side, you want to make sure the data is very clean. You want to still have this, like even if you want to automate, remember my lesson around like, even at the billion user scale, you still had humans reviewing things. And so don't try to automate everything. Identify, okay, we're going to automate this much will be done by humans, and also we'll use humans to verify this much, right? Again, it depends on what you want to automate. And then meet users where they are. In terms of don'ts, obviously don't paste PII data into free chatbots. I know nobody in this room would do it, but I'm sure, I hope not, actually, but there are people who do this, and maybe they just don't realize this is a problem, right? So there's an education aspect as well. But the benefit of having an AI policy is that you can really dictate this and say, this is unacceptable, this is acceptable. Pasting PII data into free chatbots is unacceptable, right? But there'll be many other ones, and AI policies will depend on you as a company, what your processes are, what your tools that you'd want people to use, etc. And then like certain red lines, right? So you remember the green, amber, red, like which data is off rails, which ones are fine. And yeah, meeting people where they are as much as you can. So don't introduce new processes or new tools if it means we can do things within tools they currently use, right? Remember this, like tax, right? We want to reduce that tax, that learning tax.